I want to tell you something I never said out loud to another living person, and I was 70 years old at the time. Not to my kids, not to my doctor, not to the grief counselor I sat with every other Thursday in an office that smelled like a vanilla candle working too hard. I had quit wanting anything at all. Picture a kitchen table in Erie, Pennsylvania in February. The light through that window is the color of dishwater. There is a folder on it. My oldest, Nicole, drove it up from Pittsburgh, and inside are photographs of a place called Lakeview Commons. Studio apartments. Meals included. A nurse on the property around the clock. My son Brian is against the counter, arms crossed. My youngest, Kelly, keeps her hand on my arm like I am something that might tip over. "We just want you somewhere safe, Dad," Nicole said. She had a spreadsheet. What the place cost, what my house was worth, what the difference would carry me. She had thought of everything except the one thing. Nobody at that table ever asked me what I wanted. Here is what they were saying. "We love you and we are frightened for you." That was true. That was kind. Here is what I heard. "We think the interesting part of your life is over, and now we will store you somewhere clean until it ends." I am Roy Novak. I am 73 years old now, and I am telling you this from a balcony in Chiang Mai, Thailand, where it is 7 in the evening, and the heat has finally let go of the day. And the mountain they call Doi Sutep is going purple behind the rooftops, and my whole month cost me less than $640. So let me back up, because that folder was never really about the folder. Her name was Carol. We were married 38 years. She was diagnosed in the spring of 2018, and she was gone by the summer of 2019. Colon cancer. 14 months from the word to the end. That is not a long time. People hear a year and change and they think that is a mercy, and I understand why, but I want to tell you that 14 months is exactly long enough to learn how a person breathes when they are asleep and afraid, and not nearly long enough to get used to a house without them in it. Carol was the one who remembered how everybody took their coffee. She called people on their actual birthday, not the day after when she remembered. She laughed at her own jokes before she got to the end of them, which used to drive me up a wall and which I would give a great deal to hear one more time. People will tell you the house goes quiet. That is not what happened. My house got loud. It got loud with every single thing she was not doing in it. I spent 34 years as an industrial electrician at the locomotive plant in Erie. 34 years of pulling conduit and chasing shorts in machines the size of a school bus. It is good work. You can put your hand on what you did at the end of a shift. I liked the men I worked with. I liked knowing that a thing I wired was going to go out and pull freight across Nebraska for 30 years. We raised 3 kids in a 3-bedroom on the east side. Nicole is the organized one. Brian is the practical one. Kelly is the one who says the true thing out loud at the exact moment nobody wants to hear it, which is a quality I would not trade for anything. There are grandkids now. Kelly has a little one named Owen. After Carol died, my kids started calling Nicole on Sunday, Brian on Wednesday, Kelly whenever she got a bad feeling. Same 3 kids, same 3 days, and every single call had the same shape to it. How are you eating? Are you sleeping? Did you get out of the house today? I want to be careful here, because that was love. I know it was love. I have never once doubted it. But there is a kind of love that starts to feel like a clipboard. And somewhere in there I stopped being their father and started being their project. Now, I owe you an honest accounting of what I attempted first, because I do not want you thinking I sat down and gave up. I did not. I tried everything a sensible man tries. I repainted the whole downstairs. I joined a Thursday breakfast group with 6 guys from the plant, good men, every one of them, and I sat there for a year and a half with nothing to say. I drove out to Kelly's in Columbus for 3 weeks, and we had a genuinely lovely time, and I came home and sat down in my chair and felt exactly as empty as the day I left. Then I started spending money. I took a river cruise through France. I am not joking. Roy Novak, on a boat in France. The castles were something out of a storybook. The wine was better than anything I had ever put in my mouth, and I watched all of it slide by from behind the glass of a boat somebody kept at 68 degrees, sitting among 40 other Americans my age who were also watching it slide by from behind glass. It played like a documentary about a place. It never once felt like standing in one. I went to Costa Rica because a fellow at breakfast said the place would change my life. I stayed in a lodge out in the rainforest. A toucan landed on my balcony rail the first evening, an honest-to-God toucan, and I took a picture of it and sent it to all 3 kids and thought, a moment like this is supposed to land on a man. Nothing landed. I spent 5 weeks in Italy. I know exactly how that sounds. 5 weeks in Italy, and the man felt nothing. But it is the truth. Florence is every single thing they promise you it will be. So is the food. I walked that city until my knees filed a formal complaint, and every evening I sat by myself at a table, working through a plate somebody had spent 30 years learning how to make, and I was not anywhere at all. Kelly called me somewhere between Rome and Siena and said the thing nobody else would say. Dad, you keep buying tickets to gorgeous places and flying home miserable. What is it you think you're going to find? I did not have an answer for her. That was the whole problem. I was 70 years old and I had spent something like $40,000 trying to purchase a feeling, and I could not have told you what the feeling was. It was about 6 months after Italy that it finally landed on me. I was standing in the middle of the grocery store on a Tuesday with a cart and no list. I had been in there 40 minutes. I did not need anything. I was in there because it was a place to be, and because there were people in it, and because if I stayed home, the day just sat on the couch next to me and stared. A neighbor came around the end cap. Dave, decent guy, known him 20 years, and he did the thing everybody did, head tilt. Soft voice. Roy, you doing okay? And I said, oh, getting by. And I pushed my cart around the corner, and I stood there in front of the cereal, and I understood something I had been working very hard not to understand. Everybody was being kind to me. Nobody was seeing me. I had turned into the widower. I was the fellow you check on. I had become, without one single person meaning for it to happen, and without ever noticing it myself, invisible. And I asked myself a question right there in aisle 7 that I had not asked since I was about 19 years old. If I could do anything, go anywhere, live any kind of life I wanted, what would I actually do? And the answer that came back surprised me so much. I said it out loud in the grocery store. I want to go somewhere nobody knows what happened to me. Now here is where it turns, and it turns because of a haircut. I was in the chair at the barber shop on Buffalo Road, and there was a fellow in the next chair over, maybe 65, and he was telling the barber that he had just gotten back from 4 months in Thailand. His brother-in-law lives there, been there 11 years. And he said something that got its hooks into me and would not come out. He said, the thing about it is, you can actually live there. Not vacation, live. I did not say a word. I paid for my haircut and I drove home, and I could not stop hearing it. So I did what a man who spent 34 years troubleshooting locomotives does. I researched it for 9 months, and I did not tell a soul. Expat forums. Videos late at night when I was not sleeping anyway. Facebook groups full of people arguing about visas. I read about the non-immigrant OA long-stay visa, and I read about Thailand Elite, and I read the fine print on health insurance until my eyes crossed. I asked strangers on the internet questions that must have sounded ridiculous coming from a 70-year-old man in Pennsylvania, and they answered them every time without once making me feel like a fool. And I noticed something. The people who had been there 5 years, and 10 years, and 15 years all said a version of the same thing. It is not what you think it is. It is better, and it is harder, and it is not what you think it is. I printed things out. I built a spreadsheet, which I recognize as funny, given the folder. And then one evening in the spring I set it to the kitchen. Just a trip, 2 weeks. If I hate it, I come home and I never mention it again. I told the kids I was going to Southeast Asia for a couple of weeks. I was deliberately vague about it, which I am not proud of. Nicole wanted an itinerary. I told her I would send postcards. The flight out of Detroit was 19 hours with a stop in Tokyo. I want you to understand what a 19-hour flight is when you are 70 years old and your back has opinions. But I will tell you what happened when the door opened at Bangkok. The heat hit me like somebody had opened an oven in my face. Just a wall of it, wet and heavy and smelling like rain and diesel and something sweet cooking somewhere. And I stood there on the jet bridge with my carry-on and I started laughing. I could not tell you why. 70 years old, standing in a wall of Thai humidity, laughing like an idiot. Bangkok was 4 days of beautiful chaos. Traffic that operates on rules nobody has written down. Whole families on one motorbike, mother, father, 2 kids, a bag of groceries, everybody perfectly calm, food carts on every corner and every one of them better than anything I could get at home. And on the 3rd day I was sitting at a little place with plastic stools, and the woman running it asked me where I was from, and I said Pennsylvania, and she asked how long I was staying, and I said 2 weeks, and she said, 2 weeks, not enough. And she laughed. And here is the thing I want you to catch. She was not being nice to the sad old man. She did not know I was sad. She had no idea. She was just talking to a guy on a stool. I had not been talked to like that in 5 years. Then I flew north to Chiang Mai, and Chiang Mai is where the whole thing cracked open. It is a real city, but it is a city a person can hold in his hands. There is a mountain sitting right there at the edge of it. There is an old moat around the middle of town from when the middle of town needed a moat. And I walked it. I walked it in the evening when the heat lets go, and the whole city comes outside, and the food carts light up, and it is not a tourist show, it is just Tuesday. I rented a place for 11 days for about $40 a night with a balcony that looked at Doi Su Tep, and the first evening I sat out there with a cold Chang beer and the sun went down behind that mountain and the sky did something I do not have the vocabulary for. And I said it out loud, to nobody. I could do this. Not visit it, do it. I flew home. 2.5 weeks later I called a realtor. Nicole saw the sign in the yard before I told anybody. She was driving by. She called Brian. Brian called Kelly. And inside of 6 hours there was a family meeting in my kitchen at the same table, and there was another folder. They had prepared. I will give them that. They went in order. Nicole went first, and she had numbers. Healthcare. What happens if you fall? What happens if you have a stroke at 71 years old on the other side of the planet with nobody who speaks English? Brian went second. And Brian is practical, so Brian talked about the house. You will never get back in this market. You are liquidating the only asset you have. What happens when you want to come home and you cannot afford to? And then Kelly, who had not said one word, said, I think you're running away. And I let all of it land. I did not argue with a single point, because every point was fair, and because they were not wrong to be scared. They had already buried one parent. I understood exactly what they were protecting. Then I said the only thing I had I understand why you're worried. Every one of you is right about the risk, but I'm not running away from anything. There's nothing here to run from. That's the problem. And I'm going." Nobody yelled. It would have been easier if somebody had yelled. The house sold in 5 weeks. I sold the furniture. Carol's mother's dining set went to Nicole, and the workbench went to Brian, and the rest of it went to strangers on a Saturday for cash. I put 4 boxes in a storage unit, and I looked at those 4 boxes and thought, well, there it is, 71 years. The kids barely spoke to me for a month. I got exactly 1 guilt trip call from Nicole, and it was a bad one, and I do not blame her for it now. The night before my flight, Kelly called. She did not argue. She just said, "Be careful, Dad. Please." 19 hours is a long time to sit with your daughter's voice doing that, but 19 hours is also long enough to remember why. Somewhere over the Pacific, I put my head back and I thought about the man standing in aisle 7 of a grocery store he did not need anything from. And I thought, that man is not on this plane. That man got left at the gate. I came in over Chiang Mai in the evening, and the whole valley was lit up with the mountain sitting black behind it. There was a driver waiting for me at the airport with a sign. He had my name as Roy Novak, which I have kept a picture of. He was maybe 40, and his name was Tawan, and when I put my hand up, he grinned like I was his own uncle coming home. "Welcome to Thailand, sir. First time?" "Second," I said. "But first time I'm staying." He looked at me in the mirror for a second longer than a man usually looks at a fare. Then he said, "Ah, then welcome home. I want to tell you I said something clever back." I did not. I looked out the window at the motorbikes. I spent my first 2 weeks up in Pai, which is a little mountain town about 3 hours north on a road with something like 760 curves in it, and I am not exaggerating. They sell T-shirts about it. I stayed in a guest house run by a couple in their 60s. The room was basic: a bed, a fan, a window with no glass in it, just a screen and a shutter. And the first evening the wife knocked and handed me a plate of food I had not ordered and did not ask for. "Eat," she said, "then rest." That was it. That was the whole conversation. And I sat on the edge of that bed with a plate of rice and something green, and I ate every bite of it, and I thought, when is the last time somebody just fed me? Then I came back down to Chiang Mai, and I found the place I still live in, on the 2nd floor of a small building in Santitham, which is a normal neighborhood where normal people live. Not the fancy part. I did not want the fancy part. The landlord is a woman named Yu Pin, 50s, runs the building like a tight ship and misses nothing. I negotiated a year. 9,000 baht a month, which is right around $250. I had been paying $940 for a 1-bedroom in Erie. Once I admitted the house had gotten too big for one man to rattle around in. The 2 places are about the same size. The one in Erie did not have a mountain in the window. When I handed Yu Pin the first envelope, she counted it, and then she looked up and said, "Welcome home, Coon Roy." Second time in 3 weeks a stranger said that word to me. I had to go inside and sit down for a minute. The neighbors came at me faster than I was ready for. Across the hall is a woman named Fawn. She is in her 40s. She is a nurse at one of the hospitals in town, and she is raising 2 kids on her own. Her husband died 6 years ago. Nobody told me that. I worked it out over about 4 months from things she did not say. Her kids are Pond, who is 11 and has never once in his life been still, and Ice, who is 8 and who studied me for 3 solid weeks before she decided I was acceptable. Down the corridor there is an older couple, Boone and Suri. He drove a Song Tao, one of the red trucks, for 30 years. She worked in a hotel laundry. They are in their 70s, and they sit outside their door in the evening in 2 plastic chairs, and they have, as far as I can tell, achieved a state of contentment that I intend to study for the rest of my life. The first week Boone waved me over and pointed at the chair next to him. We did not have 20 words in common. We sat there for an hour watching the street. It was one of the better hours of my life. Now let me tell you about the air conditioner, because this is the one I tell people at home and they do not believe me. It was April. April in Chiang Mai is not weather, it is a condition, and it does not quit when the sun goes down. It was 7 in the evening, and it was still 94 degrees in my apartment, and my air conditioner made a sound like a man clearing his throat and then stopped. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, trying to figure out who a person even calls. I did not have a landlord's maintenance line. I did not have anything. There was a knock. It was Fawn. "You okay? I hear you walking." She heard me walking. She heard, through a wall, that a man was moving around his apartment in a way that meant something was wrong, and she got up and came over. She made one phone call. 19 minutes later, a fellow named Pito showed up on a motorbike with a tool bag, took the cover off, cleaned something, charged something, put the cover back on, and the thing has run like a champion ever since. 300 baht, $9. I tried to give Fawn money for the call, and she looked at me like I had said something in a language she did not speak. "We are neighbors," she said. "Try that in Erie. I am not running the place down. I lived there 71 years, and there are good people in it, my people. But I want you to try knocking on a stranger's door because you heard them walking funny and then refusing $9. The stall is the other one. There is a woman named Bua who runs a noodle cart in the evening about a block and a half from my building. Plastic stools, one bare bulb on a wire. She is there every night from about 5 until she runs out. I started going because it was close and it was cheap. 40 baht. A little over $1 for a bowl of cow soy that would cost you $18 in a city at home and would not be as good. Third night, I came around the corner and sat down, and before I said one word, she was already making it. "Extra chili. No lime." "Same, she said, and kept working. Now I want to be honest with you about how much that undid me, because I think if I do not say it plainly, you will not understand what I actually came here for. Carol knew how I took my coffee. Carol knew I needed 20 minutes of quiet before anybody talked to me. 38 years of somebody knowing you like that, and then one day nobody on this earth knows one single thing about you. And here was a woman I had known for 3 nights who had bothered to watch me closely enough to learn how I take my noodles. About a month in, I sat down and reached for my wallet, and it was on my kitchen counter. I started apologizing in 2 languages, neither of which I speak. Bua waved her ladle at me. "Pay tomorrow." Try that at a Starbucks in Pennsylvania. Go on. Tell the young man at the counter you will get him tomorrow and watch what his face does. I found the expat crowd about 2 months in through the internet, same as everything else. There is a group that meets on Thursdays at a place near the river, all sorts, Doug from Ontario, Klaus from Germany, Stephanie from Canada, who is the only one of us with any sense, fellows who have been here 20 years and fellows who got off the plane in March. There was a young one, maybe 32. One of these computer fellows who works from a laptop, and he asked me straight out, in front of everybody, what made a guy your age actually pull the trigger. The table got a little quiet. I do not think he meant it the way it came out. I said because at home I was somebody's errand. Here I'm a guy who eats noodles. He laughed. But Doug did not laugh, because Doug knew exactly what I meant. The health thing happened in my 5th month, and I want to tell you about it in detail, because this is the part everybody at home is really asking about when they ask about anything else. I woke up in the night with a band of pressure across my chest, not a sharp thing, a tight thing, like somebody had cinched a strap around me. I am 71 years old at this point. My wife died of cancer. I know exactly what it means when your body starts sending you mail. I went downstairs, and Leung Som Pong, the security fellow, took one look at me and had a taxi at the gate before I got my sentence finished. Chiang Mai Ram Hospital. I walked in the door at 10 minutes after 2 in the morning. I was in front of a doctor in 15 minutes. 15. His name was Dr. Niti. Late 30s, trained in Bangkok, English better than mine. He did not talk to me the way doctors at home had started talking to me, which is to say, he did not talk to me like I was already mostly gone. He asked me questions like I was a man who might have useful information about my own body, blood work, an electrocardiogram, a chest film, 2 hours, acid reflux and dehydration. Not the thing. Not the thing I had spent 2 hours in a plastic chair being certain about. Dr. Niti told me to drink more water and lay off the chili at night, and then he said, "You have the heart of a younger man. Please stop scaring yourself." The whole business, the taxi, the emergency visit at 2 in the morning, the blood work, the electrocardiogram, the x-ray, the medication, came to 2,800 baht, $80. I had an emergency room visit in Erie in 2017 for a kidney stone. 4 hours, 1 scan. The bill was $4,100 before insurance, and I fought about it for 11 months. I want to be careful not to oversell this, because the insurance side of living here is a real thing and it takes real work. But I walked out of that hospital at 4 in the morning into warm air with a receipt for $80 in my pocket, and I laughed out loud on the sidewalk like a crazy person. Somewhere around 6 months in, the thing turned over. I cannot point at a day. It is like the way a season changes. It does not happen on a Tuesday. It happens across 100 Tuesdays, and then one evening the light is different, and I stopped being a man who was visiting. I started being a man who lives here. And what I noticed, and this is the thing I would want you to hear if you only heard one thing from me, is that I had started reaching for things again. Small things. Whether Bua would have the good pork that night, whether Pond had passed the exam he was worried about, whether the rain would hold off until I got up the stairs, that low current under a day that tips you into it, it had switched back on, and I had not even caught it switching, which is exactly how you know the thing is real. Fawn is the one who got me into the tutoring, and by got me into it I mean she informed me it was happening. There is a community center about a 10-minute walk from the building, and in the evening after school they run an English hour, and they never have enough adults who actually speak it. So now on Tuesdays and Thursdays I sit at a low table in a plastic chair built for a 9-year-old, and I help kids sound out words. There is one girl, Nan. She is 10. She is the kind of kid who reads a word wrong, and instead of getting embarrassed, gets furious, and then gets it right. A few months in, Nan looked up at me in the middle of a page and said, "Leung Roy, why did you come here?" The whole table was listening, and I thought about the folder, and the grocery store, and the boat in France. I said, because at home nobody needed me to do anything. Nan thought about that for a second. Then she pushed her book across the table at me and said, "I need you to do this. 10 years old." I had to look at the ceiling for a second, and every kid at that table saw me do it, and not one of them said a word about it, which was gracious of them. Doug from Ontario is the one who put words to it. We were sitting by the river on a Thursday, and I was trying to explain to him what I have just spent an hour trying to explain to you, and I was not doing a good job of it, and Doug listened to the whole mess of it, and then he said the thing I have thought about every week since. "Roy, back home you could go quiet for a week and nobody'd knock. Here you miss 2 nights at the same stall and somebody asks after you. That's not paradise. There's no paradise. That's just being counted. Being counted. 26 years I paid a mortgage in a town I was born in, and I could have gone dark for 9 days before anybody rang the bell. I miss 2 nights of noodles in Santitham, and Bua asks Fawn if the old man is sick. Kelly came first. Of course it was Kelly. She did not ask me. She sent me a flight confirmation and a message that said, "I'm coming. Don't argue." She came braced. I could see it on her at the airport. She had come 9,000 miles to find her father in a bad room in a hot country, being taken advantage of, too proud to admit it. She had a whole speech in her carry-on. I could see the shape of it in her face. That first evening we sat on my balcony, and the sun went down behind Doi Sutep, and she was quiet for a long time. "It's so different," she said. "Yeah," I said. "It is." I showed her everything over 8 days. I took her to Bua, and Bua made her a bowl and would not take her money. And Kelly, who has been arguing with strangers since she was 4, did not know what to do with that at all. I took her to Waro Rote Market in the evening when the whole place is lit up and smells like 10,000 things at once. I took her up the mountain. I introduced her to Boone and Suri, and Suri held both of Kelly's hands in both of hers for a good while and said something I did not catch, and Kelly cried a little, and she did not even know why. But it was Ice who did it. We were coming up the stairs on about the 6th day, and Ice was on the landing, and Ice looked at Kelly and then at me and back at Kelly, and she said, in English she has been practicing for a year, "You are Lung Roy's daughter? He talks about you." That was all. Then she went inside, and my daughter stood on that landing and came apart. Later, on the balcony, with her eyes still going, Kelly said the thing I will carry with me until the day I am done. "I thought you were running away from us. I've been here 6 days, and now I think you were running at something. And the part I can't get past, Dad, is that for 5 years every one of us was working on you from the outside in. The folder, the phone calls, the whole campaign. And not one of us ever worked out that there was nothing in you that needed repairing. You needed to stand somewhere that had never once thought of you as damaged." And she is right. That is exactly it. Every place I went before, France, Costa Rica, Italy, I showed up as the man whose wife died. I never had to say it. It rode along in my suitcase. And Erie had already met the hollowed-out version of me, and a town cannot unmeet a man. Neither could my kids. Neither could I. I got off a plane here, and I was nobody, a stranger on a stool who did not know what cow soy was, a man with a history that was entirely his own to hand out or keep. And in that blank space, the fellow I used to be, back before any of it, finally had room to walk back in. Brian came 2 months after Kelly. Brian is practical, so Brian came with questions, and I want to be clear that I loved this. He wanted to see the lease. He wanted to see the visa paperwork. He wanted to know about the insurance and what the plan was if I could not manage the stairs at 80. I showed him everything, every page, every number, because I had every page and every number, because I am the man who researched it for 9 months and did not tell anybody. He sat at my little table going through it for about an hour. Then he closed the folder, and my son said, "You've actually thought this through, huh?" Then he said, "Now I'm a little jealous." And we laughed until Fawn knocked on the wall. Nicole took the longest. Nicole is the organized one, and the organized one has the most to give up, because the organized one has to admit the spreadsheet was wrong. She came 11 months in. She was polite for about 3 days, in that way that is worse than fighting. What got her, in the end, was the hospital. She wanted to see it. So I took her to Chiang Mai Rum, and we walked in, and she looked around at the lobby, and she asked me what the whole night in the emergency room had cost, and I told her $80. She stood there in that lobby for a while. "That's not possible," she said. "I've got the receipt," I said. "It's in the folder." She got the joke about 2 seconds later, and my oldest daughter laughed until she had to sit down on a bench in the lobby of a hospital in northern Thailand. It has been 2 years now. My kids do not worry about me. My kids are curious about me, which is a thing I did not know I wanted until I had it. Nicole asked me questions about the visa process for a friend of hers at work, and I know for a fact there is no friend at work. Brian sent me a link to a place in Hua Hin last month with no message attached. Kelly calls me on no schedule at all now, because there is no schedule, because I am not a project anymore. The evening goes like this. I walk when the heat lets go, usually around 6. I go past Boone and Suri, and I sit for a while if the chairs are out. I get noodles from Bua, and she has them started before I sit down. Tuesdays and Thursdays I have the kids at the community center, and Nan is working her way through a book about a dog. Then I come back up and I sit on my balcony, and the mountain goes purple and then black. My whole month runs between $580 and $640. Rent is $250. Electric runs about $57 because I run the air at night. Internet is $30. A woman comes twice a week and cleans and does my laundry for about $57 a month. Food is about $140, and I eat out most nights, because why would I not? My blood pressure medication costs $19 at the pharmacy on the corner. It was $67 at home with insurance. My Social Security and the pension from the plant come to $1,680 a month. For the first time since Carol died, the number goes the right direction every single month. Not dramatically, just steadily, quietly forward. And I stopped doing that arithmetic. You know the one where you pick something up in a store and put it back down. I did not know I had been doing it for 5 years until I stopped. Now, I am not going to sit here and tell you Thailand is perfect, because it is not, and anybody who tells you different is selling something. The heat in April will humble a man. The paperwork will test you, and the immigration office is its own spiritual exercise, and I have stood in that line and questioned my choices. The power goes out sometimes, and you keep a candle and a battery fan and you get over it. There is a rooster somewhere in this neighborhood who operates on a schedule known only to God. And I miss things. I miss fall. That one is real, and it is physical. The smell of October in Pennsylvania, the way the maples on the highway all go at once. And I missed Owen, learning to walk. I watched my grandson take his first steps on a telephone screen at 11 o'clock at night, and I sat on this balcony afterward for a long time. That is the real cost. I am not going to dress it up for you. It never shrinks. What I do not miss is the gray Tuesdays, or the vanilla candle, or being the man you check on. And I would rather miss my family from a life I am actually living than sit 40 minutes from all of them in a room with a nurse down the hall, being safe, being nothing. Last month, Suri caught me on the stairs. She had been to see her sister, and she had a bag of mangoes the size of a small dog, and she put 4 of them in my hands, which is more mango than one man can address. And she said, in English, she has been building for 2 years specifically so she can say things like this: Lung Roy, you are good for us. The children like you. And I said, you've been good for me too. And I meant it. That is the part I need you to understand. I was not being polite on a staircase. I meant it, because it is true. I am 73 years old. I am a retired electrician from Erie, Pennsylvania. I am a widower. I am a grandfather. And I am a man who walked into a neighborhood on the other side of the world knowing exactly nobody, and slowly and unremarkably, over about 200 ordinary evenings, turned into somebody people wave at, somebody Bua starts the pot for, somebody Ice tells her friends about, somebody Nan hands a book to. I found the thing here I could not buy in France or Costa Rica or Italy. It is not a view, it is not a feeling you can photograph. I found the place where somebody notices if I do not show up. After Carol, nobody had to notice. I was optional. Here, I am not optional. And if you are sitting somewhere right now, and I think maybe you are, or you would not have stayed with me this long, in a house that has gone quiet, walking through the shape of a life that quit fitting the day somebody you loved walked out of it, then let me put to you what I wish to God somebody had put to me straight. You have permission to go hunting for something that tips you forward again. That is not a betrayal of anybody. That is not you quitting on them. I believe all the way down that it is the exact thing they would have picked for you, even on the days you cannot feel it, especially on those days. It comes back, and it starts small, so small you are liable to miss it, whether the mangoes are ready, whether a kid gets the word right, whether the rain holds off. And then one evening you are sitting on a balcony and you catch it running quietly in the background, steady as a porch light somebody left burning. Before I let you go, I want to mention something that helped me when I was in the thick of all this and had no idea what I was doing. There is a book called The Right Move. It goes through the actual costs, the cities set against each other, the visa side of it, how the healthcare really works, and the traps that would have cost me a considerable amount of money if I had walked into them blind. I did not write it. I am not selling you anything, and I would not know how. But if you are seriously turning this over, the way I turned it over at a kitchen table for 9 months by myself, I think it could save you a lot of grief. There is a link in the description if you want to look at it. No pressure from me. I just wish somebody had handed it to me in that first year. Anyway, if you got something out of sitting here with me, I would appreciate it if you would hit the like button and subscribe. There are more stories like this one, and I think they are worth your evening. Thanks for listening. It is getting dark on the mountain, and Bua is going to run out of the good pork. I will see you in the next one.